Part 1: The Architecture of Global Power, A History of Central Banking and the Enslavement of Mankind. This work by Stephen Goodson, a former director at the South African Reserve Bank, argues that the trajectory of nations is not determined by voters or politicians, but by those who control the issuance of currency. By examining the transition from sovereign, state-issued money to debt-based interest systems, the book posits that central banking is the ultimate tool of invisible colonization. It suggests that by controlling the money supply, a global financial elite can turn entire populations into permanent debt servants, orchestrating boom and bust cycles to consolidate wealth and power. The narrative challenges the modern understanding of economic growth, reframing it as a systematic extraction of national energy. The Synagogue of Satan, expanding on the theme of hidden influence. This chronological study by Andrew Carrington Hitchcock attempts to map the specific lineages and dynasties that have steered the course of Western history from behind the scenes. It is a dense, year-by-year documentation that seeks to connect the dots between private banking interests and the catastrophic wars, revolutions, and social upheavals that have reshaped the globe over the last 3 centuries. The book serves as a radical alternative to conventional history, suggesting that major world events are rarely accidental, but are instead the result of long-term strategic planning by a concentrated financial power, 200 years together. In this monumental and deeply controversial late work, the Nobel laureate Alexander Solzhenitsyn breaks a long-standing silence on the shared history of the Russian and Jewish peoples. Moving beyond simple, sanitized narratives, Solzhenitsyn explores the friction, cooperation, and synergy within the Tsarist Empire and the early Soviet Union. He examines the role of various ethnic groups in the Bolshevik Revolution and the subsequent formation of the Soviet state. It is an essential, albeit difficult, text for anyone trying to understand the deep-seated ethnic and political tensions that forged the modern East and continue to influence global geopolitics in the 21st century. Culture of Critique. Professor Kevin MacDonald provides a psychological and evolutionary analysis of 20th century intellectual movements, because it argues that certain influential schools of thought, ranging from Bayesian anthropology to Frankfurt School critical theory, were not merely organic academic shifts. Instead, MacDonald posits they were strategic efforts to deconstruct the traditional cultural, religious, and biological cohesion of Western societies. By analyzing these movements as evolutionary group strategies, the book challenges the foundational assumptions of modern social science and the origins of multiculturalism. Part 2: Biology, Demographics, and the End of Order, the Bell Curve. Moving into the realm of sociology and biology, we encounter one of the most cited yet vilified books of the 1990s, authored by Richard Herrnstein and Charles Murray. This study analyzes massive data sets to demonstrate the correlation between cognitive ability, heredity, and socioeconomic outcomes. It famously challenges the blank slate theory of human nature, suggesting that a society's class structure is deeply influenced by the innate distribution of intelligence. In a world increasingly focused on equity of outcome, the bell curve remains a lightning rod for its insistence that biological reality plays a primary role in social stratification and the future of Western meritocracy. The Camp of the Saints. Jean Raspail's 1973 novel is a haunting, visceral depiction of civilizational collapse that has moved from the fringes to the center of political debate. It imagines a future where the West, paralyzed by its own liberal conscience and humanitarian rhetoric, is unable to defend its borders against a massive, unarmed flotilla of migrants from the Third World. The book is not just a story about migration. It is a grim meditation on the survival of a culture that has lost its will to power and the psychological mechanisms that lead a civilization to accept its own displacement and eventual disappearance. The myth of the 20th century. This text by Alfred Rosenberg represents a radical departure into the realm of racial mysticism and ideological foundations. It attempts to reinterpret all of human history, art, and religion through the lens of distinct biological essences. For the author, history is not a struggle of economic classes or abstract ideas, but a manifestation of what he calls the racial soul. While widely condemned and historically tied to the darkest chapters of the last century, it remains a primary source for understanding the philosophical rejection of universalism and the rise of identitarian thought. Unintended consequences. On the other end of the spectrum, John Ross delivers a massive novel that celebrates the rugged individualism of the American spirit. The narrative focuses on the history of the Second Amendment and the escalating tension between private citizens and a federal government perceived as increasingly tyrannical. It meticulously details the mechanics of firearms and the philosophy of the armed citizen. It has become a foundational text for the modern patriot movement, emphasizing that the right to self-defense is the final safeguard of all other liberties and the ultimate check against absolute power. Part 3. The deconstruction of the modern human, the manipulated man. Esther Villar's critique of the 1970s gender revolution remains a profound shock to the modern system. She argues that men are not the oppressors of women, but are themselves the primary victims of a societal contract that forces them into a life of mindless labor and emotional dependency. Villar posits that masculinity is often a cage, a set of expectations designed to make men provide for others at the cost of their own freedom. Her work offers a radical deconstruction of gender dynamics that predates and often eclipses modern manosphere discourse of the domestic sphere. Might is right. This 1890s manifesto by the mysterious Ragnar Redbeard is a brutal, poetic rejection of Judeo-Christian ethics. It dismisses concepts like equality, justice, and human rights as artificial constructs designed by the weak to restrain the strong. Instead, it advocates for a return to a primal Darwinian reality, where power is the only true source of legitimacy. It is a terrifyingly consistent application of survival of the fittest to human morality, serving as a reminder of the prehistoric instincts that still simmer beneath the surface of civilized society. The Holy Bible. Within this library, the Bible stands as the ultimate paradox. It is the most printed book in history. Yet in our increasingly secularized and technocratic age, its traditional interpretations of order, hierarchy, and divine law are increasingly treated as forbidden or archaic. For many in the dissident world, the Bible remains the final moral and metaphysical anchor, a source of objective truth that stands in direct opposition to the chaotic, relativistic drift of modern globalism and the erosion of traditional values. Shams al-Ma'arif. This ancient Arabic grimoire, or the Book of the Son of Gnosis, represents the furthest edge of the esoteric. Attributed to Ahmad al-Buni, it deals with planetary alignments, talismans, and the hidden powers of the Arabic alphabet. It is included here as a representative of the ancient occult knowledge that has been suppressed by both organized religion and modern materialism. It suggests that there are dimensions of reality and influence that operate far beyond the reach of our current scientific understanding, hinting at a world governed by hidden laws.